first of the month. And after that, I goof off. When I goof off, I tend to play your decks. And I intend to do that tonight, but first what I would like to do is I'd like to respond or at least react to the latest version of the TempoStorm Wild Meta Snapshot. I believe this is TempoStorm 30.0. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. Came out a few days ago, and largely the TempoStorm Meta Snapshot did not change much at all. The top 6 of the 7 decks look largely the same. I mean, you got your two aggro decks in Aggro Priest and Pirate DH. You've got Spell Damage Druid and Hostage Mage kind of being your controls, and then you've got 2 combo decks that I would consider a little bit more combo based. In what we've got, Lion Hunter was actually downgraded to tier 2 with a new sort of combo tempo deck splatted in its place. And the 6th one is Combo Priest being the last sort of one place there. And the thing is, the deck that, and this is what bugs me, the deck that replaced Lion Hunter, which I've seen some small sample sizes of stats on, might look like the best deck in the format. You could make that argument. Is Lifesteal DH. I made an hour-long video kind of highlighting the stream where I played this off and on over and over again and had mixed results. Sometimes it felt very, very good. Sometimes it felt like I was on an island and I was bricking. And I have to say that I disagree with TempoStorm on this one. This does not feel like a tier 1 deck to me. Is it a very good tier 2 or a very good tier 3? I think so. Is the matchup spread kind of impressive? Well, you're sort of favored into aggro unless, it's 40 cards and you don't draw well. But you're favored into aggro. Okay, that's fine. How much you're favored by is interesting. When I talk with KVLT or when I talk with Maxi, they talk like aggro is a slam dunk. You win every time. And when I've played it and then they've, one of those guys have been in my chat and I'm just like, well, like, what's happening here? And like, well, no, you just drew poorly. And like, yeah, that's going to happen. So it doesn't feel like it's dominant into aggro. It feels like it's good. It has a game into aggro. That's a very different conversation than being dominant into aggro. It's good in the slow stuff, but as KVLT says, it's a little bit worse in the Reno stuff than, let's say, normal fatigue questline DH, because I think it's a little bit slower at getting to its win condition. So I kind of disagree with this getting pushed into tier 1. It does not feel like a tier 1 deck to me, especially with it being so new and just sort of sprouting on the scene. But there's a couple reasons why we might do that. We might vault this immediately to tier 1 because it is a very good deck from the TempoStorm perspective, but also it's something new. The meta basically hasn't changed. The addition of this deck into the meta, no one's really playing this, aside from maybe 3, 4, 5 people that I know. Nobody's like spamming this on the ladder and playing this all over the place. This isn't catching fire. This isn't seeing a huge play rate like Charge Druid was. So with the meta largely unchanged, writing about the meta isn't all that interesting. Might as well make something interesting and call this tier 1 and shake things up. But that's typically not what TempoStorm does. I have found in the past that TempoStorm in general has been a lot more conservative with where they place different decks. Now, Tom Carter in my chat does, tell me and point out they were quick to place Lion Hunter in tier 1, even though there was really very little sample size. There's essentially Tom, who spammed like, overtime has spanned like 1,500 games with the deck. There was Hyperion, who was playing it a fair amount, and it was catching on here or there. But Tom's argument was, well, they made Lion Hunter tier 1 kind of earlier than was possibly necessary. But my comeback to that was, yeah, but Lion Hunter was dominant in matchups. Lion Hunter absolutely dumpstered Miracle Rogues. Like, Miracle Rogues just couldn't beat Lion Hunter once you got the egg online. Nobody was making giants and applying pressure fast enough that you were dead before you could do that. Lion Hunter continues to, by my estimation, be, if not a tier 1 deck, is at least at the very, very tippy top of tier 2. Whereas this deck, what does this deck dominate? What does this deck beat? I mean, it has a very flat matchup spread, which is great. Sounds like a great tier 2 deck. I just personally don't see it as a tier 1 deck. And my own personal campaign, since I've played this, has kind of been like, I think we're overrating this a little bit. Now, I might be out of bounds. I might not be correct on this case, but that's just my own opinion. And I've come to, the longer I've played this game and the more that I've made content and the more that I've played Team Hearth League, which is, I refer to it as THL. It's it's a place where you can play competitive Wild. And by the way, that format might be sunsetting soon. So if you're interested in getting involved in a weekly best of 5 competitive format for Wild and you want to dip your toe in that, you should either reach out to me in the comments or and I can direct you to the correct places or the right Discords where you can seek to get involved in that. Hint, hint. Got to try and recruit you guys. But the more I've played THL, I've come to kind of trust my instincts a bit. My instincts are screaming that this deck is overrated. And I think they have overrated it. And I'm not 100% sure why they've overrated it, but I feel like it is. So 90% of the time I agree with Tempo. 90% of the time I'm talking to the same people who are writing the report and kind of getting the vibe for why they write what they write, and usually I'm in lockstep with them. This is where I'm not in lockstep. I think this deck, I'm not going to call it trash because I don't think it's trash. I just think that, like, and I made a meme of this. It's like the Joker in The Dark Knight when he's dressed in the nurse's outfit and he's like he's going through his rants in the hospital, right? And it's like Questline DH loses to Void Touch Attendant on 1. Nobody bats an eye, right? That's supposed to happen. That's part of the plan. But, you know, make a Questline DH that beats aggro 60% of the time and people start losing their minds. I feel like that's where we're at with this deck. It's kind of like the new deck shine polish is having us overrate this thing's abilities. And I know it's good enough that, like, good players are playing it. KVLT's playing it. Maxi's playing it. I'm pretty sure I've seen OTZ play it with some success too. I just don't think it's as good as they say it is. And I think in a part, it's like almost like a Corbett problem. Corbett used to play a deck and be like, well, I don't really know how good it is because I'm too good at Hearthstone. And so as I'm playing the deck, I need to really get a bunch of people playing it to get a better sample size to figure out if it's any good. I think people are going to craft this deck. I think people are going to play this deck. I think people are going to get super frustrated playing this deck and call it crap and call it trash, as opposed to like something like Lion Hunter that does something very powerful and very polarizing, and it's very obvious in how powerful it is. This seems a lot less than that. So I don't know. I don't think this is tier 1. So that is my reaction. That's my very grumpy reaction to Tempo, Omega Storm, LOL. In this case, and I usually am, again, I usually agree with those guys. I agree with 90% what was written there. We are in a control combo meta right now in Wild. Aggro is one treasure distributor nerf away from being not viable. So anybody who tells you that you can't play control in Wild is a fucking moron. But this one I don't get. Okay? So you have gotten my terse letter. And if you enjoy this content and this analysis, I would appreciate if you consider liking, commenting, or subscribing to the channel on YouTube. These videos typically do pretty well, and I usually get a lot of positive feedback from them. Sorry I don't have something more fleshed out to kind of look at the whole report. If you really want to see what I thought of this unchanged report, aside from this particular deck, I would go check out my previous video on decks to play after the mini set. That hasn't changed. You can kind of add this on there as if you have the cards, play it. It's cool. Sometimes it works really well, and it's like you're brooding on 4 and 5, and you're like, then you're Ilgi comboing them from a billion. But other than that, like, I don't know. I don't see it. So please consider liking, comment. Let's go play some Vera decks.